Big shakeup of Chinese history curriculum in local schools. And words of warning to the U.S. over coming summit with North Korea.
Hello, good evening. Hong Kong has lost its title as the world's most competitive economy after it was bumped to second place. And that's according to a new competitiveness ranking by a Swiss business school. More now on who came out top. Hong Kong was ranked the most competitive economy in the world in the last 2 years, not this year. It slipped to second place in the 2018 World Competitiveness Rankings by Switzerland's International Institute for Management Development. The United States climbed 3 places to clinch number 1 out of 63 economies.
Our ranking in terms of business efficiency, government efficiency, we still rank number 1. In terms of economic performance, as you know, we did very well last year. But the U.S. last year, President Trump has announced cutting profits tax and also boosting investment in infrastructure.
The report highlighted upcoming challenges for Hong Kong this year, such as an aging population, land supply, and the complicated environment from U.S. monetary policy normalization. But here's what the Financial Secretary thinks Hong Kong needs to play catch-up.
Technological infrastructure and scientific infrastructure. We will continue to invest on that and work very hard to enhance the overall infrastructure of Hong Kong in terms of technology, in terms of attracting people, and in terms of building a better ecosystem for innovation and technology sector.
So how did other economies do? Singapore remained in third place, followed by the Netherlands and Switzerland. Remaining places in the top 10 are occupied mainly by Nordic countries such as Denmark, Norway and Sweden, with strong productivity in their private sector. High-performing economies include mainland China, which rose 5 places to 13th on the list, as well as Austria, which climbed 7 spots to 18th. Venezuela was in last place due to its political and economic crisis.
The Education Bureau has announced changes to the history curriculum in local secondary schools. One move is to include more lessons on contemporary Chinese history. Sharon Tang reports.
Big news from this committee tasked to review secondary Chinese history and history curricula. Nearly 5 years of discussions have brought the new agenda to life. First, it will be compulsory for secondary 1 to 3 students to study Chinese history. The revised framework will divide the subject into 9 historical periods instead of 4. Secondary 1 and 2 students will first be taught ancient Chinese history up to the Qing dynasty. In secondary 3, students will switch to more contemporary topics, such as how the Republic of China was formed in the 20th century. Hong Kong history, which includes the history of the city's local culture and traditions, will take up 15 lessons. Meanwhile, politically sensitive topics such as the June 4th Tiananmen Square crackdown are not included in the syllabus because the committee's chairman does not see the need.
I think if the teacher can make use of the reform movement, discussing both positive and negative, impact of the reform movement, I think the June 4th probably will come out, I think, naturally. But I think I don't have to really highlight, I think, June 4th by including it in your syllabus.
A committee member of the Federation of Education Workers agreed with the move. Tang Fei says that controversial topics would only exert more pressure on teachers, especially when they have to guide students to think in multiple perspectives. The revised history curriculum is expected to be implemented progressively from secondary 1 onwards in all local schools. It's expected to be implemented in September 2020 at the earliest. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Test runs for the high-speed rail link to Guangzhou have revealed friction damage on the wheels of some train carriages. But the operator insists this is normal and they're working to improve things. Winner Wong reports.
MTR Corporation officials came out to calm another round of media frenzy on issues with the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express rail link. Reports have emerged that abnormal friction damage was discovered on some train wheels during the system's test runs. The rate of deterioration seen now is apparently a little faster than expected. But the operator insists there's nothing abnormal about it.
The steel wheel running on the steel wheel must have some wearing. So at this moment, we are trying to monitoring the wearing in such a way we need to adjust something to make it to control or and try to rectify the problem. This is a new system, and we are adjusting all the lubrication quantity, the location, etc., to minimize it. At the moment, the situation has improved.
Officials also addressed news of water seepage issues in tunnels near Maipo in the New Territories. It was bad enough to cause signaling problems. The MTRC explained an accumulation of dust and debris clogged up some drainage pipes. The system is now back to normal after cleaning, and the rail operator will make it a practice to clean the area more frequently to avoid a repeat of the glitch. The opening date for the rail link remains in September this year. Test runs began in April. The MTRC stressed the purpose of test runs is to work out all the kinks and make sure trains can hit the ground running once services begin. And so finding problems at this stage is absolutely normal. Winner Wong, TVB News.
Bus Drivers Union will work to rule tomorrow to protest against long working hours for bus drivers. During the action, drivers will not drop off or pick up passengers before the buses are completely in the designated bus stops. The 900-member union says it will join the action since authorities failed to revise a regulation which requires drivers to work for 14 hours at most. Its spokesperson also demanded a 12% salary increase for all workers.
Pro-establishment lawmakers slammed Benny Tai during a LegCo debate this morning. The condemnation came over his recent remarks that Hong Kong could consider becoming independent if the current political system on the mainland ends. That topic was mentioned at a forum in Taiwan in March by the law professor and initiator of the Occupy movement. Both Beijing and the SAR government condemned him for that. Today's debate was called by the DAB's Gary Chan. Under LegCo's split voting system, a non-binding motion was passed with support from the pro-establishment camp.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel met with Premier Li Keqiang on the first day of her two-day visit to China. Merkel faces a delicate balancing act clouded by U.S. President Donald Trump's trade threats. Both Germany and China have large trade surpluses, with the U.S. putting them in Trump's firing line, while Beijing may be keen to send a message of total solidarity with Berlin. German officials have suggested that Merkel must avoid the appearance of siding too openly with China. They worry that could lead to a confrontation with Washington.
A U.S. government employee at the consulate in Guangzhou has reported experiencing abnormal sensations of sound and pressure. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the House Foreign Affairs Committee the employee's symptoms are similar to those that affected American diplomats in Cuba last year. That still unexplained incident sparked a rift in U.S.-Cuban relations and led to the recall of non-essential staff to America. The Guangzhou employee started experiencing a variety of symptoms late last year. In April, the worker was sent to the U.S. for testing. The findings showed symptoms similar to the person with a concussion, the same clinical diagnosis of the Cuba patients. And still to come. District councillors vote to end Mongkok pedestrian zone over noise concerns. Counting the cost over the use of substandard steel at HOS housing project.
幾暖口啊！ 有蚊使乜怕？殺他死液體滅蚊器，採用日本配方，對人體無害，有效殺滅惡蚊。電線夠晒長，放到邊殺到邊，全靠殺他死，蚊蟲冇定期。
Welcome back to TVB News. The Yaoqing Mong District Council has agreed to strongly demand that the government abolish the Mongkok pedestrian zone. That motion was submitted by 4 district councillors after Mongkok residents complained life had become unbearable because of the noise of nearby street performers. The motion was passed overwhelmingly in a council meeting. Democratic Party's James To was the only one against it. He felt the government should introduce a licensing system for performers instead. The topic will be discussed again in July.
The Housing Society is trying to calm fears over building safety after it removed more than 7 tons of reinforcement bars a subcontractor used before it received approval. Christy Loan reports.
Redevelopment works at Minghua Daiha in Shaoqi 1 were supposed to make the blocks and the estate more durable. But now there's cause for concern. The Housing Society says it has removed 7.5 tons of steel bars that were used in roads, car parks and on the ground floor level. They were used by the subcontractor before test results came out. Another 12.5 tons of unused bars have also been taken off-site. The Housing Society chief doesn't believe the subcontractor was using the substandard materials deliberately, but was the result of rushing the construction process. He dodged questions on potential penalties for the main contractor and stressed current monitoring measures are stringent.
We have a very tight monitoring system, and that's why we found out these not so satisfactory situation before it goes further.
The Housing Society said the extra construction costs and possible income loss caused by the delay will be paid by the main contractor. The blunder also drew attention in the legislature.
This is no excuse to compromise quality.
The Housing Society said contractors involved may be barred from tendering in the future after further investigations are finished. Christy Leung, TVB News.
A man reportedly fell to his death at a luxury housing estate in Ho Man Tin today. A 50-year-old worker was said to have been inspecting a 6-meter-tall water tank on the roof at Mantin Heights. His colleague found him laying next to the tank and sent him to Kwonghwa Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The president of Italy has chosen law professor Giuseppe Conte to be the country's new prime minister. But with no political experience, critics say Conte will have to prove he can lead the Eurozone's 3rd largest economy. Sonia Artero reports.
Giuseppe Conte, who's not affiliated with any party, emerged from obscurity last Monday. That's when Italy's 2 populist blocs, the anti-establishment Five Star Movement and the Far-Right League, chose Conte as their candidate. Right after receiving the mandate to form a government from President Sergio Mattarella, Conte sought to reassure international allies. While he said he knows the difficult phase the European Union is entering with budget negotiations looming, he insists his first priority is to Italian residents.
He
said, outside there is a country that needs answers, and I will be the defense lawyer of the Italian people. Conte has a huge task ahead of him. Financial markets have already started selling off Italian stocks and government bonds at the prospect of an inexperienced Eurosceptic government. Critics say the president took his time endorsing Conte because he was accused of inflating his academic credentials. The 53-year-old claimed he perfected his judicial studies at Cambridge University, New York University, and the Sorbonne in Paris. But those schools found no trace of him in their records. That's when Conte clarified he had only used the universities in an informal capacity to meet colleagues. Nevertheless, Conte vows to put his law experience to good use. He's threatening to abolish 400 pieces of what he deems are useless laws. But first on his agenda is finalizing a list of cabinet ministers to present to the president. Once the Conte-headed government is sworn in, its policy agenda will be put to confidence votes in both houses of parliament. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
And that's the news.
Thanks for joining us. Good night.